we go. Hopefully that works. Okay, so let's get into Revit. All right, I think you should all be able to open Revit even if your files are copying. All right, so I'm going to open up Revit 2018. And really today is just going to be about, I'm going to talk a lot, and you guys will just have to listen and watch, and yep. Yep. Add comment, yep. You go to Arch, very top one, and then on the bottom. There we go. Okay. So I'll be doing a lot of talking this first week, and not a ton of interaction. You won't have a ton of interaction with the program other than me just kind of defining a lot of elements, okay? So here is our basic, I guess what we could call the welcome screen in Revit, okay? Who's used AutoCAD again? Let me just remind myself how many. Okay, quite a few, okay. So I make a lot of comparisons to AutoCAD just for those that have used it, right? Because it makes sense. So I'll be using AutoCAD terminology a lot. So this is very much, you know, kind of like the AutoCAD welcome screen, right? So things that we'll see here, we have our recent documents essentially here, right? So these are files that were previously opened that you were working in, and if you want to open that file that you were recently working in, you can click on one of these and it opens that up, okay? The top portion here it will open up projects, okay, and the bottom part here will open up families, right? We also have open, so if you click on open, it'll allow you to browse and find a file, okay? We have open families down here, which are families are essentially like blocks in AutoCAD, okay? So they are pieces or they are compiled objects that create something. So we've got, you know, 4 or 5 different extrusions that create a table, okay? So this is our welcome screen. Projects opened here, families opened here, okay? Now before we get into that, all right, I just want to talk about Revit in general, right? What is Revit and what is BIM and what does parametric mean, and you know, how is Revit different than AutoCAD, okay? So we'll talk about a few of those things. And let me just, I have a book here. This is the not required book, but I do like to have it and show you a few things from it. I have an older version. This is a 2014 version. But I do like to show you a few things from here, so I will periodically. You can buy this book. Again, it's from Ascent, or you could just type Autodesk Revit, you know, workbook, and this is the one you'll get. But what I want to talk about with Revit is the idea of BIM, right? What is BIM? Well, BIM stands for Building Information Modeling, okay? You probably hear that a lot, okay? And Building Information Modeling, it's different, you know, the Revit software is different from AutoCAD in that there's a lot of information built into our building models, okay? So when we work in Revit, essentially, let me just talk about the structure of Revit and then about the information. Okay, so we have BIM, right, which is Building Information Modeling, and when we work in BIM, right, in general, we have a model, okay, and our model contains everything, all of our working drawings, essentially, okay? That's the way that Building Information Modeling works. We have one central model, and that is where our floor plans are, that's where our elevations are, that's where our sections are, that's where our site plan is located, okay? So as far as drawings, everything is located in that one file, okay? As opposed to something like AutoCAD, which is, you know, more of a 2D drafting program, where when we create drawings, we create a lot of separate drawings, right? So I have a file here that's the floor plan. I have a file here that's the elevation. I have a file here that is the section, okay? I have a floor plan, or something here that's the site plan, right? So I have all of these different individual files, right? Where in Revit we have one. When I work with AutoCAD files, I take all of these individual files, and number one, they kind of all correspond, right? I use the floor plan to generate the elevation. I use the floor plan to generate the section, right? I coordinate the elevations in the section so they all look the same, right, and coordinate. And then when I create sheets over here, things like A101 or A201, I use XREFs, right, to attach or to sort of connect these two things, right? So I XREF the floor plan into this sheet and I get A101, which shows the floor plan. Great, okay? Great, right? A lot of coordination, a lot of going back and forth. What's different about BIM is that I have this one central model where all of these different views of the model are contained. And I say views because when I want a floor plan of my model, I look at the floor plan view, right? When I want the elevation from my model, I look at the elevation view, okay? So instead of having all these different files, in here, I look at a view of the floor plan. I look at a view of the elevation, okay? So I'm taking this one model, and in order to look at these different drawings, I'm viewing it in a different fashion, right? Does that kind of make sense to everybody so far? Okay, so I look at the floor plan, I look at the elevation, and you're probably thinking, well, what about these sheets, okay? Well, the sheets are also contained in here. So my drawing, my model, my views, and my sheets are all contained in this file. Okay, so we'll just do like A101, A201. They're all contained in one central file, okay? Oops. Now when people work in AutoCAD, right, generally speaking, you can only have one person working in a file at a time, right? So if I am the project manager and I'm working on the floor plan, I open the floor plan, I'm making changes, right? People who are working in other files can be notified of that, but I'm the only person that can kind of go in and make changes, okay? It's good if you don't want people making changes, but it's bad if you want maybe multiple people working on the same floor plan at the same time, because you can't do it in AutoCAD, okay? In Revit, the way that we work is we have several people in one model at the same time, and information is sort of simultaneously checked in and out as you save back and forth, right? So I can be working on the floor plan view of my model, and somebody else can be working on the floor plan view of the model, okay? The items I touch can't be modified by my second person, but when I save, my connection to those items is cleared out, and that person can then engage those items, right? So it's kind of a checkout system that you use in Revit to use items that is cleared every time you kind of save, okay? Now that's if you have kind of multiple people working in the model, okay? So that's generally, you know, how AutoCAD works, right? This is how Revit or BIM software works. It's one kind of difference is the workflow, right? How we're producing drawings. Something else we should define about BIM software, right? And Revit is just one type of BIM software, okay? There's probably 50 different types of BIM software. I could say, name maybe one or two, right? There's FormZ, there's ArchiCAD. I know there's a lot out there. I just can't remember them all. But, you know, Revit is just one form of BIM software. Another thing about BIM software, right? So we've taken care of the M part, the modeling part. We use a model, right, instead of 2D drawings, okay? That model's 3D, and we view it to get different drawings. Information, okay? We have a lot of information contained in our building models, right? We talked about this a tiny bit last time, but when we're working in AutoCAD, you're drawing 2D lines, right? And those 2D lines, they have a start, they have an end, they have a midpoint, and they are flat, generally speaking, right? They don't contain any information like, hey, this line means a chipboard wall, right? It doesn't have anything inherent in that line that tells you that, okay? Which is good and bad. In building information modeling, okay, the information portion is we input information into objects, right? So items that represent a wall also contain information in them that says this has gypsum on one side, you know, it has a stud in the center, and it has gypsum on the other side, and a tile wainscot, okay? So there's information contained in our objects in this model, right? So good and bad, because right up front, we have to kind of define these elements, even if we don't know what they are, right? So before I create something in Revit, I have to say, not just, hey, you know, this is a line, this is a line, this is a line. There's my floor plan, right? I can't just draw lines. I have to say, I'm going to build a wall, and the wall has these 5 elements, and it's this, you know, it starts here and it stops here, and there's a lot of input that goes into it initially before you can even draw. Okay, so we'll talk about schedule in a second, but there's information contained in our models, right? So it's a model, there's information contained in it. And one other thing about Revit or building information modeling that is different from AutoCAD is that it has parametric relationships in it, right? So parametric means the items are all related somehow, right? Meaning if I move or change or redefine one object, it has a relationship with something else that then moves, redefines, or changes, okay? So it's a model, we view it, it has information contained in this model, and then the model has a lot of parametric relationships in it. So a lot of the things are related, all right? Which, good or bad, in AutoCAD we don't have those same relationships, right? So, that makes sense so far? It'll make a little bit more sense. I'll move through the Revit and you can look at it and see kind of, you know, visually. I'm assuming most of us are visual people, right? You can visually see what these things mean, okay? Okay, so let's do this. Let's open up, or I will open up. You can just watch if you'd like. You don't really need to open anything unless you want to, but I'm going to open up a Revit file, and I'm just going to let you see the software and define all of the elements in the software itself, okay? So let's just open up, I'm going to open up this sample project right here. So I clicked on it, okay? Hold on one second. Okay. All right. And this is a project, obviously, right? So I open it up and I see some things. Now I'm going to open up a second session of Revit just so that you can see what it looks like when you open up a blank drawing. Okay, so I have 2 versions of Revit open. Okay. And I'm just going to click on New, and we're just going to open up a blank template here. Again, some of this stuff I will come back and define a little bit further in the future, so just kind of watch and I'll come back and define things later on. When you open up Revit out of the box, right, it looks like this. We have a blank screen, okay, it's white, we have a white background. Those of us that are used to AutoCAD, right, especially, you know, we'll say back in the day, AutoCAD used to open like this, right? It had a white background and you change it to black so that it didn't, you know, kind of burn your eyeballs. But I would say in general, you likely want to leave it like this, right? So we're going to be drafting with a white background here. We have some elevation markers here, okay? We have a properties dialog box over here. These can be moved, so I can grab this and I can, you know, if you guys have a second screen, you can shift it over to the second screen if you want, right? It will dock if you want it to. Let's see if we can get this a little bit smaller. There we go. So I have a properties dialog box here, and I have a project browser, okay? Up here at the top, I have a ribbon. The ribbon contains all of my drawing commands, modification commands, any sort of command type option in Revit is going to be contained on the ribbon, okay? And there's no sort of classic view, right? Like AutoCAD. This is kind of, you see what you get. You get what you see here, whatever. Up here we have a quick access toolbar. So this toolbar up here are some of Revit's most common commands. So you click on 3D and it bumps you into 3D, okay? We also have this big R, this blue R right here. This is our application menu, and it contains a lot of different commands within it, okay? This is what blank Revit looks like. Let me just go to Revit with a project in it. Okay. This is what Revit looks like when you have a project. We still have the properties dialog box. We still have the project browser here. We still have our ribbon and our quick access. Okay. But I have information in here now. I'm going to go to a 3D view. Okay. This is very much different than AutoCAD, right? For those of you that use AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, when you draw a floor plan, it's flat. We are looking at it in plan view. Okay. When we're in Revit and I flip to a 3D view, right, I have a 3D model here. We are building 3D elements here. Okay, so we have a model. All of these model elements contain information and they all have a relationship with one another. Okay, building information modeling. Not only do we have a model, we've got little trees in here, we've got cars over here, we've got little turbines, and we have a topo surface, right? We have topography in here, so this is a very complete model, all right? This is what our model looks like in 3D, of course, okay? But I also talked about when we are working with a building model, we view it, right? So how do I see a floor plan here? Well, I'm going to come over here to my project browser and I'm going to view the floor plan of this model that I built. So I can double click on, you see me here, level 1, click, click, and there is my floor plan view. Okay, I can click on level 2, and there is my level 2 floor plan view. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hurry and change my mouse color here to black. Hold on. Let's see. So you can see my mouse a little bit better. Pointers. Oh, where is it? Extra large. There we go. Okay. So there's my cursor. See it a little bit better this way. All right. So I have my 3D view and now I have my floor plans, right? So level 1, level 2. Okay. I'm going to go and look at some elevations. So let's look at north. There's my north elevation. I have my east, right, south, and my west elevation. Okay. I've got sections, right, building sections. I'm just double clicking on these items over here in the project browser. So if you're wondering how I'm switching between these, I'm just double clicking. And again, I'm just really, today's just about defining things, so don't worry about how they actually function. We'll get to all that, right? We'll go back over all this. I just want you to see the interface first, okay? Let's go to a stair section. Here's a nice stair section, okay? You're also probably noticing we have levels here that are metric. Who wants to look at metric? Maybe Leela, right? You're like, I feel like I'm at home. Okay, no, now we all feel better. We're back in feet and inches. Okay, so you're going to notice levels, right? So we're seeing here that we have that 3D element, okay? We have typical wall sections, right? Here's a view of the model in a sectional view. I've got detail views, right? So some good stuff here, right? Click, click, opening all these. We have some renderings even. Is anybody taking Kevin's rendering class this semester? Yes, good. So you'll be doing some rendering in Revit, right? Probably our project house from 2510, hopefully. There's a little surprise for you, right? You probably will. But we have some renderings. Okay. So what's great about this as opposed to AutoCAD, especially when you're rendering, is that with AutoCAD, when you want to use 3D and you want to render, right? And again, these have their places in industry. When you create a 3D model in AutoCAD, it's kind of essentially wasted because it doesn't have any sort of construction integrity with it, right? You're building these kind of dumb objects that don't represent a floor plan or an elevation or a section, right? Or they can, I guess, but they don't look like it. Whereas in Revit, when I build 3D elements, they can be viewed as a plan, section, or elevation. They have integrity, and I can use them for 3D and 2D construction documents, right? Which is really nice, okay? I have, in addition to all these different views of my parametric model, I have sheets, okay? So a 001, there's my cover sheet. It has a title block here, which is great, right? And I have some views that I have placed on this sheet. Okay, here's my site plan. All right, there's my site plan, fancy solar analysis. Here's a A102, a floor plan view. Okay, elevations and sections. There we go. Details, right? So, you know, everything is in one place, right? I'm building the model, I'm viewing the model, I have renderings in here, and I also have my construction document sheets. Okay. All right. So I want to show you some things that happen in a parametric model. All right. I'm going to come back and I'm going to go to a 3D view of this model. Here's my 3D view, and I'm going to open up a floor plan. Here's another really nice thing about Revit. I can view two things at the same time on the same screen. It was a little more tricky in AutoCAD to do this.
How did you do that?
I typed WT on the keyboard and it window tiled the two screens. Okay, so I come over here, I look at my model, right? Here's the front of my model, here's the roof. I am going to, let's see, this is the level number 1. I'm going to click on this wall right here in my model. Do you notice that over here it highlighted, right? So I've highlighted this wall, I've highlighted that wall, and you can see they are indeed the same element, right? Because I'm viewing them in two different places, okay? If I come over here in my 3D view and I delete that wall, delete, you notice that it went away over here. Okay, let me close that little guy. There we go. All right. If I go to my level 2 floor plan, okay, here's my level 2. I can grab elements like that. I come over here and it has highlighted that element. In floor plan view, if I grab that element and I drag it over, it's kind of bad practice, right? But I see this happening over here. Now, that was kind of a bad example. Let me pick a different wall. What I wanted to show you is when I move one wall, I'm going to move this wall. Oh, come on. MV, I'm going to move it. Okay. You're going to see it with a lot of errors likely. There we go. See, it moved over here, right? Not only did this wall move, but because this wall was joined with it and because this wall touches it, right? All of those elements simultaneously moved with that wall that I moved, okay? So they have a relationship with one another, right? I move, I flex, I change one object, and because other objects have a relationship with that object, they all change at the same time, right? It's good. Good and bad, right? Good when you know what you're doing, bad if you're beginning and you get into a model and delete a lot of things, right? Not knowing that they all relate to one another, okay? All right, so just a general overview of Revit, okay? Let's look a little bit more closely at some of our elements here, all right? So I think I'll just kind of stay in this model. I'm going to undo a few of these things that I have done though so that I don't get any weirdness. Except we will stay in feet and inches. Here we go. Okay. So let's talk about our interface a little bit more. All right. When we are drawing, okay, we can draw in a lot of different places in Revit. I can draw in floor plan view, I can draw in elevation view, I can draw in sectional view, okay? My drawing board is essentially this area here, all right? It's this white background, okay? This is where I'm going to draw. Now, just like AutoCAD, when I draw things here, I draw them in real world scale, right? So that means that if I draw a building, I'm going to draw it, if it's 100 feet by 100 feet, I draw that building 100 feet by 100 feet. Okay, I don't, in my mind, scale it down so that it will fit on a piece of paper like a 1/4 inch is equal to a foot. I don't do that, all right? I always draw things the exact size that they are in real life, okay? So that generally makes it easy. So this building right here, right, we've got about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet. This building is about 60 by 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, about 60 by 60, we'll say, okay? And it's drawn that way, all right? Okay, So we'll just kind of start up here at the top, and hold on a second, let me just get where I need to be here. We'll start with our quick access toolbar. All right, I'll define these elements a little bit further. Our quick access toolbar has some of the most commonly used commands in Revit, so that you can very quickly come up here, click on 3D, click, and it pops me into 3D. Great. All right, so we have save, open, we have a sync, which we'll talk about maybe at the end. We have our undo, we have our redo, print, dimension, tags, text, 3D, section, line weights, and close hidden windows and switch windows. Okay. If we want to change some of these quick access commands, once you get really familiar with Revit and you're trying to customize it to make it quicker, right? You can use this little drop down here and you can customize your quick access toolbar. So if you use you know, detail lines all the time, then you could put that on your quick access toolbar and have it there for you, instead of going to annotate, click, and then over to detail line, click, right? So isn't that such a long way to do it? We just want to come up and click on it. We can do that. Okay. You can. Yep. Third way, right? This is a lot like AutoCAD. There's always 3 or 4 different ways to initiate commands, right? So I can go through and click on an icon. I can click on a quick access icon if I want to, or I can keyboard shortcut. Yep, DL. Okay, so that's our quick access toolbar. All right. We have our application menu here. All right, the big R. Well, it's kind of, it's gotten smaller for whatever reason over the past few versions, right? But I have my, oh, are we fully, there we go. I have my interesting. It's not looking, ooh, they've changed things a tiny bit. There we go. Now I have to click down here, not on the big R. So I have my application menu still here, right under the big R, okay? And if I click on that, I have a lot of, I have saving options, I have printing options, I have exporting options, I have opening options, and I also have options for the program down here, okay? So if I want to, you know, new project, here's where I go. Open project, okay? Save as, export to, I don't know if you all know this, you can export to most CAD formats from Revit. So if I want to open up my Revit file in AutoCAD, I export it to AutoCAD, right? If I want to open it up in SketchUp, I export to AutoCAD and then open up in Revit or SketchUp, okay? So there are a lot of different file types I can export to, okay? I can print and close, and then I click here for options. Here's where I can set save reminder intervals for automatic saves, right? There's a bunch of different things I can change in here, right? We're not going to go through all of these, and really I don't think there are a ton of settings you're going to have to alter in here, right? But just know this is where the options menu is, okay? You can set this save reminder to whatever you want it to be, right? Okay, so we have our application menu. One really nice thing about the application menu here, right, is that we have our recent documents here, okay? So if you have been working in the same file for 4 weeks, you know, you don't really have to browse out to find it anymore. You can come over here, click, and choose, right, whatever file you want to use, click, and it will open that up, if it's found, of course, right? So it kind of remembers things that you have been in recently, okay? Below that, we have our ribbon, all right? So again, our ribbon contains a lot of our drawing commands, our modification commands, okay? These ribbons, we have tabs, right? Architecture, structure, systems, insert, right? There's a bunch of them, okay? You're likely not going to use all of them, but some, like structural engineers will use structure, right? There's systems, we've got, these are mechanical, right? Things I never use in my projects, right? But generally, you know, this is where you're going to find all of your drawing icons, modification icons, okay? Just like AutoCAD, most of these, not all of them, but most of them have a keyboard shortcut. So I can click on here to create a wall, or do you notice when I hover, see it says WA right after wall? I can click on this to create a wall, escape to clear it out, or I can type WA and it will initiate the same command, okay? All right, so all of our tabs here, they have these little palettes associated with them. So we have build, circulation, model, room and area, opening, datum, and work plane, right? For example, under architecture. So build, same as the drawing commands, right? So we're going to build elements or draw them, right? So they've sort of grouped, or Revit, Autodesk, have grouped similar type commands within these tool palettes, all right? If you notice a little down arrow next to a tool palette title, click on it. There are some other options available in that tool palette, okay? So architecture generally has architecture related items like building walls, doors, windows, roof, ceiling, you know, building elements, okay? We're not really likely going to work with structure, systems. You know, you could turn these off if you want, but they don't really interfere with anything. We have insert for inserting AutoCAD files and links and different things like that, bringing families in, bringing images in. We have annotate, which, you know, you can add dimensions and text and detail lines and keynotes, tags, things like that. Massing and site, we can create some topography. We're not going to worry about a few of these for now. View, okay, we can create new views of our model, new plan views, new section views, new call-out views, new elevation views, okay. Manage, this is where we can manage project settings like adding an address in here, or changing line weights, or managing materials, or, you know, different kind of Revit settings. We manage them in here. Add-ins, there will be little customization things you can add in here if you'd like. They're separate from the actual Revit software, right? And then modify. So this is where if you've drawn something and you want to modify it, here are commands, right? We can move, rotate, copy, align, okay? These commands are similar to AutoCAD commands, but at times slightly different. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on these because so many of you know AutoCAD, but we will go over some of them, okay, that I think are key. Yep.
Excuse me, can you easily break a parametric relationship if you want to?
Well, it's so some of them, yes. Yes. So you can, for example, you can create parametric relationships that say something like within elements that say, you know, if you move this wall, then this wall moves 10 feet. Let's say we establish some weird relationship like that, right? You could go back in and break that pretty easily, right? But in relationships where it's like this wall, you know, this wall comes in and meets that wall, and if I move this wall right here, that wall moves with it, that's kind of inherent, and other things won't work if you break that parametric relationship. So yes and no, I guess. Any other questions so far? I'm going to be talking a lot this first week. So we'll just get used to that. Okay.
So the modify is like a edit, basically. It opens it up
for editing, yes.
alteration.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you create walls, right? You want to rotate the walls, you rotate the walls. If you want to break them, split them, mirror them, copy them, array them, this is where you would do that.
Okay.
Yep. So these are going to help you in wall or building elements / geometry creation, right? I still use the term geometry, even though they are elements, they're walls, there's doors, there's windows, right? But we see a geometric representation when we look at them, you know, for example, in floor plan view. Okay. Okay, so this is our ribbon. We can customize our ribbon, right? We can add keyboard shortcuts, which we can talk about when we get to that point. With the ribbon, if it happens to change and not look the same, there's this little button right here that you may have likely clicked on. So if I click on it, see how it kind of goes like that, and I can still click on it and find what I want, but it looks weird, right? I think half the struggle with students in software is going home and the interface looks different at home than it does at school, right? You know how to do stuff, but you go home and you're like, okay, this looks different. I know these tools are the same, but it looks different, right? So I want to kind of help you manage that the best I can so it looks the same from school to home. If things like this happen, let me know and I can help you solve that. But this is the most likely culprit right here, right? I click on it again, oh, and they get even smaller and you panic, right? Like, no, they're going away. I click on it again, it cycles through, they actually turn off. More panic, right? You click on it again and they finally come back to the way they were, right? So we can, right, by cycling through those, get these to look the way they should for you, okay? I say this in general and I get myself in trouble, but if you just open Revit, it should look like what it looks like at school for the first time, right? So hopefully that statement maintains itself. Okay, so we have the ribbon here. Let's move over to our tool palettes that we're going to be using a lot. All right. The first one we have is our properties tool palette. Okay, so these right now are docked, one on top of the other. I can click on this and I can drag it over. Okay, I can resize it. I can make it smaller or larger if I want. I can put how many of you have a second screen? If you don't, you're going to want to get one with Revit, right? But it's nice to be able to put these on a separate screen, you know, very close to your working space, so you have a nice big drawing board when you're working. Okay. Our properties tool palette tells us information about our objects in Revit. All right. So let me just here we go. Let me select this wall. Okay. It tells me information like when I select this wall, it tells me that it's a panel, right? It tells me it's 202 millimeters thick, whatever that means, right? It tells me it's clad in concrete, okay? It also tells me that it starts at level 2 and it has a base offset and that it goes up to the roof line. So not only are we establishing relationships between objects in floor plan views, right? We're establishing relationships between things in a vertical nature as well, right? So they start at one place, they stop at another, okay? I really like Revit because of this aspect, because I think that as you are drawing these, you have to really understand not just the plan views of them, right? You have to understand the sectional value of these as well, right? So you're really from the very beginning, right? You are starting to understand where it starts and where it stops. Where's level 1? Where's level 2, right? How are things going together? Is this a good module for construction? You're really starting to think about what these items are doing, okay? Which is great for beginning designers, right? And I think it's that kind of thing is lost in AutoCAD because you just don't see it as much, right? There's not that much definition. So this is something I really appreciate about Revit, right? It makes you aware and thinking of these as not just, you know, I'm just drawing drawings, right? Well, no, these drawings are built. You have to think about that, you know? So it makes you cognizant of that, I think. All right, so properties. I get a lot of information about the object. It tells me it bounds a room. It tells me, right now we're not worried about structural, but it tells me, let me close that up if I can. It tells me how long the object is, right? It tells me the area of it and the volume, which, yep.
What does room bounding mean?
It means that I can define a room in that space. You see that? In Revit, we don't just place dumb tags that say kitchen. We define a room in Revit. And these objects, these objects that like walls and windows and doors, they have to bound a room in order for it to be defined. But you can also choose, for example, if maybe I didn't want to separate the mechanical and the bathroom, right? They were supposed to be maybe divided by a half wall or something, right? Visually I wanted to see a wall, but I didn't want it to bound. It would say, hey, okay, great, they're one room, they're not actually two. So you can define that boundary. All right, so I look at this and I can say, hey, you know, it's 64 feet long. I have 43.296 meters squared of material in this object. You know, it's very helpful when you look at this and you can think about modules of materials. You can think about cost estimation, right? For contractors, area takeoffs. Like, this is pretty helpful information that can be extracted out and used for other things. Okay. Another thing that's pretty helpful in Revit that we don't formally have in AutoCAD is phasing, right? So you're working on a project and it's a tenant improvement, right? So you're going into an existing building, right? And you need to show the difference between the existing elements that are staying and the elements that are going to be demoed and taken out, and then the new elements that are going to be built in their place, right? Makes sense. In AutoCAD, we do that with line types. So things that are going to stay are very grayed out. Things that are going to be demoed or dashed, and things that are new are bright and have continuous lines, right? In Revit, we phase items, and we get kind of that same visual gradation, but things turn on and off depending on what phase you're in, right? So if I'm in the existing phase, right, I may see the existing shell and the elements to be demoed. If I'm in the new, quote, new phase, I'll see the existing elements, but the demo stuff turns off and the new stuff turns on, right? So phasing allows me to sequence my drawings so that they make sense, okay? So properties will allow me to see all of those those options within an object, okay? Okay. Oh, one other thing, it will allow you to change type. So this wall is this basic wall type. If I drop down, okay, I can change it to brick, right? And immediately my wall is changed to brick, right? So I can change things in the properties dialog box as well. And I can also alter them. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, okay? I'm gonna undo that, okay. So I have my properties dialog box here. I also have my project browser, all right? My project browser contains all of the different views of my model in addition to my construction sheets, all right? So you'll see up here at the very top it says views, right? And I have a little plus minus sign. I can open, expand it, and close it up, okay? But I have floor plans, 3D views, elevations, sections, right? You get the idea. These are all different views of my model, okay? I can create new views, I can delete views. There's a lot of different things we can manage in here, which we'll get into later in the semester. I have legends, I have schedules, which we'll talk about, and then I have sheets, right? So views of the model are kind of the base files, right? I have floor plans, elevations, sections, great. Sheets are the actual printed construction drawings that have a title block on them that we print and give to the contractor to build from, all right? So these are kind of the pure views. These are the compiled sheets where you put the views on the sheets to print them, all right? And again, it's all contained in one file, okay? All right, one thing that always tends to happen, well, two things I want to talk about. With my project browser, we also have families and groups down here, which I don't quite want to get into. But another thing that you can do in this project browser is you can search it. Likely none of you have worked in an earlier version of Revit, but this is a new feature. And when your project browser gets very long and there's a lot of drawings in there, it can be really difficult to search through, right? So the find option was a really big deal when it came out a couple versions ago. But if I just click, so I've engaged this browser and on the keyboard I type Control F, I can find things in here. So I could type West and it will highlight, see how it highlighted things with West in the name. It's probably going through the families and everything, but it highlighted West right there. But this find option was really a big deal. Would you mind, Marco, would you mind closing that door a little bit? Thank you. I felt like that was my biggest complaint with Revit when I started using it, was that I felt like I was lost in menus all the time, right? Wall menus and door menus and window menus and the project browser and line menus and detail line menus, right? Constantly searching. But now they've kind of helped to mitigate that. Okay, so I've got my project browser, my properties. If you happen to accidentally turn off, close out your properties browser, which happens all the time, okay, we are going to come over here to view. This is something you'll want to remember because it will happen. If you go all the way down to user interface and click, you'll see properties right here. If I click on properties, it comes back, okay? Same thing with the project browser, right? We have the project browser here. So this is where you're going to turn all those, like the view cube right here and this. Those things can be turned on and off, okay? Another thing for those of you that have used AutoCAD and want to customize your keyboard shortcuts, right? Which I've done. Keyboard shortcuts is here. Okay, we won't go over it today, but if you want to start doing that, you can. All right. So you lose your properties dialog box, your project browser. You're going to go to View and then User Interface. Okay. Any questions so far? Yep.
How did you change it to feet and inches?
Okay, so I changed the units. So, but when you, let me just say this before we totally get into that. When you open up a normal, just blank AutoCAD or a Revit file, it's going to be in feet and inches for you. Okay, so, and I say that because I chose an architectural template and it will be in feet and inches. Okay, if by chance something happens, like this one is not, I just typed UN, which is units, and I can change it here to feet and inches. Okay, so we have our project browser. Okay, I think you're all probably familiar with the idea. I'm going to dock this here. Familiar with the idea now that this is our drawing space right here. This is our drawing area, right? Whether it's in floor plan view, right? I go to floor plan, I click on wall, click, 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 right? I'm drawing walls in here, escape, escape. I go to 3D. There's that fancy wall that I just drew, right? This is something that people who've worked in AutoCAD have to really get used to, right? You have to get used to the idea that if you draw something here, even you're thinking, I'm just drawing it for a second so I can reference it, you'll get an immediate email or phone call. Did somebody draw a wall in quadrant 4 of, it was just for a second, calm down, right? But you have to get used to the idea that a lot of people view this model and it's all self-contained in one file. So whatever you do shows up everywhere, right? Or whatever you delete, deletes everywhere, right? It doesn't just delete in the view that you're in. So AutoCAD users have to get used to that idea that this is just more than you, right? But this is my drawing area, essentially, right? I can draw walls, I can add doors and windows and draw different things in floor plan view. I could also come over here to, let's say, elevation view, right? And I can add things. I can draw an elevation view. Click. Okay, there is a window that I just drew, right? So certain things I can draw in elevation view. Not everything, but certain things. Okay. A couple other things in my drawing view here. You'll probably notice down here I have my view control bar. All right. And I also had my navigation bar up here. All right. So I'm going to switch back to a floor plan view. Click, click. One thing I want to mention before we go on is that as I am clicking all the way through these views, right? Every time I double click on a view, it pops up, and maybe you're wondering, well, where did the other view go, right? That I was just in. Did it close out? Where is it, right? These views, as I open them, are stacking one on top of the other. Okay, so this view, if I come up here and I close it, click, it shuts down and the view previous shows up, right? Click. So these items are just stacking one on top of another. All right. So when I, for example, double click on level 1, level 2 is still below me there. I can click on switch windows and I can see that they are both open. I can switch between them. Okay. Just like AutoCAD, you can also hold down Control tab and then Tab. Control tab, 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 and you can switch between windows as a quick key. So hold Control, Tab, 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 and I'm not holding down Tab. I'm just pressing it. Okay. So just so you know, right? I can close that view out, and I'm here. Okay. So I have my view control bar down here, all right, and this controls scale and visual items on my screen, all right. It controls the extent of the drawing, it controls the visual graphics, and it controls the scale, okay. And I have a navigation bar up here. This will allow me to it has navigation tools. I don't really feel like they're that useful. I don't know, maybe you guys will find them useful, but it's kind of like the view cube in AutoCAD. It allows you to go to plan, section, elevation, rotate around, right? But I'll show you another way to do that. So I feel like the other way is better, but we'll talk about that. But this view control area is pretty important, all right? We have scale, we have detail level, right? We have visual style. I'm gonna skip, and then we're gonna come here to crop, the crop region, show crop region. We have temporary hide or isolate, and we have reveal hidden elements, and we're gonna skip those last three. So let me just show you what all of these elements do, okay? Get ready, you AutoCAD users, right, to see how wonderful changing scale is in Revit. Okay, to change scale, this scale right now is 1 to 100. If I want to change it to 3/4 of an inch is equal to a foot, click, scale's changed. Not only is the scale changed, the annotation is changed with it, right? I always get oohs and ahs at this point. Right? So that's a big deal, right? In AutoCAD, annotation is the biggest pain in the neck. I love AutoCAD, don't get me wrong. I love AutoCAD. I still use it a lot, but the idea of having to coordinate and change my annotation size is a pain in the neck, right? So this is a pretty big deal and pretty great thing in Revit. Whenever I change my scale, all of the annotation scales with it, right? I don't have to worry about text size or dimension size or anything like that, okay? And I can just do it as much as I want. Look at that. It's just magic. Okay, so we will, let's see, we'll change, I don't remember what was it, 1 to 100? It was, oh, but it was the engineering, wasn't it? Let's see, I don't remember what it was. I don't think it's showing. Anyway, we'll leave it. Well, there we go, looks good, good enough. Okay, so I have scale. So, and I just want to say that these items down here, these are view specific. Okay, there are some things in Revit where I change it and it affects the entire model. And that makes sense, right? Because if I change a wall, I want that wall location to be correct in plan, section, elevation views, right? So that makes sense for that to change in every view. But when I'm looking at a specific floor plan view, right, maybe, you know, I want this to be 1/8 inch, but my other level I want to be 1/4 inch, right? So I don't want that to universally, the scale factor to universally affect the entire model because I need to have specific scales for specific things, okay? So this is a view specific item, okay? Detail level, let's look at detail level real quick here. You see how my walls, I have layers within them, right? Those layers represent building materials. So the outside's concrete, I have sheathing, I have the stud, I've got interior chipboard, right? And those will show according to what detail level I'm in. If I choose coarse, I don't see any variation, right? I don't see those elements, okay? And that's fine. That's what you want. Let me change that real quick, okay? Medium shows me some, and then fine will show me the most, okay? It didn't really change in this instance, but detail level will show you different items and different views, okay? Visual styles, this is a lot like AutoCAD. We have wireframe. Let me flip into a 3D view and show you what these do. Okay, so visual style, again, this is a view specific item. So I can choose wireframe. Looks like wireframe. Okay, and again, this is a visual style, so it visually looks different on the screen, but it doesn't actually change your geometry, okay? So you'll see me flipping back and forth between visual styles when I'm drawing things, and you know, it just really, sometimes it's good to view things in a hidden view, right? Sometimes you want to see it shaded to see color differentiation so you can tell what things are. Sometimes hidden wireframe is good so you can see through things to make other things, okay? Shaded. Consistent, right? So you've got a bunch of these. These all have hand keys too, right? HL, hidden line, WF, wireframe. SD shaded, right? So you can start doing keyboard shortcuts to figure these out.
You have a print off of
I was just going to bring that up. I believe I do. I need to find it though. I'll get one for you. I'm going to get you a list of all of the keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, let me write that down. That'd be helpful.
Sorry, you showed us a bunch of times my computer was loading.
Okay.
Where do I go to, like,
To find the files, you're going to go to File Explorer one more time, and we're going to go to this PC, and then just type F. There you go. F-I-L. There you go. Yep. And go to this PC over there on the left in the list of right there, and then go to CAD Common. It has a CAD, yep, CAD Common. Double click, and then go to Arch, and then I hear other people clicking. Maybe not everybody's gotten it. And you go to all the way to the bottom here, and you find Revit. Click, click, and you right click and copy 2018, and then go paste it. Go back to this PC, and then you paste it on your drive, the one with your name on it. Open that up and paste it right in the root folder. Right there. Right click and paste. There you go. Okay. So these are our visual styles. We also have, I'm going to close out this view. See, there's our view cube where you can click, 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 click. It just, I don't feel like it's as useful as panning around, which we'll talk about, but here's our floor plan view again. I'm zooming out. One thing about your mouse you'll want to recognize, right, is that you have a middle button. Okay, if you don't have a middle roller button on your mouse, you need to get a new mouse because life is just much easier with the middle button, right? If I am in a floor plan view, I can zoom in by rolling my mouse button forward, right? I can zoom out by dragging it away from me, rolling it away from me. I can pan by holding my middle roller button down, holding it down and holding it, and moving my mouse back and forth. Okay, so zoom in, zoom out, pan back and forth. Okay, that's how I'm navigating about my workspace, right? Okay, a couple other view settings we'll talk about, and again, we'll go over these multiple times. You'll hear it, you know, a bunch of times, so even if you forget, we'll go back over it again, right? I have a crop region. So you notice that when I clicked on, I'm gonna hover, crop view, right? Something showed up, right? This is a view specific item that allows you to define what you do and don't want to see in your view, essentially, right? So I can click and it shows items, but how do I define that boundary? Well, right next door to that little guy, and I honestly don't know why these are so tiny. I feel like I'm squinting constantly, right? But if I click on that, you see the little light bulb pops up. That will reveal and hide the crop boundary. Okay, so this is my crop boundary. I click.
Can't make your lens larger?
No. No, not that I found. Otherwise I would, because I feel blind. I ordered new glasses, people. But this will allow you to, if I click and I hold and I drag and I let go, right? Well, again, we'll go over these things more in the future, but it will allow me to expand my crop region. Okay? And again, this little button, do not crop, click, click, right? See, so it crops it and then it does not. And this little button right here allows me to turn the crop region off because it will print if it's left on. Okay, it's like a viewport. I have my little sunglasses right here. This is a temporary hide isolate. This will allow me to select an object like this furniture right here. Click. If I come down here and I click on this, I can choose hide element. Okay, and it hides that element. And I say hide instead of turn off because with the temporary hide isolate, it will come back. You can temporarily turn it off, create something, turn it back on, right? I'm just hiding it for a second as opposed to...
So I can hide like all the lights, all the diffusers if I want.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. So I could come in here, you could, and with that question, right, first of all, I can hide something temporarily, right? But then I can click on this and hit reset. It comes back, right? But one thing about, maybe I want to grab all the electrical like you're saying, right? I can click on an object of that category. I can choose temporary hide isolate and choose hide category or isolate category. So if I isolate that category, it's just isolating this furniture here, okay? I know I have a temporary hide isolate on because number one, it says it right there, right? But number two, I see this cyan boundary happening, okay? To get rid of that, I click on it and hit reset, okay? All right, another little shortcut, ZE, zoom extents, ZE. So if I'm zoomed very far in and I need to come out to view the entire picture, ZE, zoom extents. I can also use my middle roller button and I can double click the middle roller, click, click, twice very fast, same as AutoCAD, to zoom extents, okay? That brings me out to the extent of the drawing, which is the extent of the crop region, okay? I also have reveal hidden elements. There are ways where I can turn things off permanently. I turn them off, meaning they're still in the model, right? We need to get out of the habit of in AutoCAD, just delete it, right? I don't want it there, delete it. We can't do that because in our drawing, if we delete something, it deletes it out of every view of the model, okay? So you're gonna be turning things on and off a lot in Revit. So I have this little light bulb that if I have turned something off, we'll talk about how to do that. If I click on it, my screen turns pink, okay? And everything that is pink is hidden. If I want to unhide it, I click on it, and I can come up here to unhide category. I choose close, and now those items are back, okay? Now again, I want to remind you that generally speaking, these commands down here, these icons, they are view specific. So if I change it in this view and I make it perfect, right, the next floor plan that I go to, you see, I don't see those elements, it's different, right? I don't see the trees and etc., right? So it will allow me to view the model and see what I want to see without changing the model, so the other views are affected by it. Yep.
Can you save your view settings?
Yes.
And then apply it to a different
Yep. It's called a view template. Yep. All right, so we have our drawing area, we have our view control bar, right? Let's talk about just a couple more things today. We're going to talk about some terminology, and I think that's about it actually. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about some terminology in Revit, all right? I'm going to come over here to my elevation view. I'm going to go to a north view here, all right? We have some element terminology in here that we need to talk about. We have a host, we have components, we have views, datums, annotation, and levels, all right? So a host is a built-in place element such as a roof, a wall, a floor, okay? So construction elements that stand alone in a project, right? So I can come into Revit, I can open up a floor plan view, and I can create hosts by themselves, all right? So I go into my floor plan view and I think, oh, I want to create a wall. Well, a wall is a host. I can create it standalone. I just click, right? Click, 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 escape, escape to end the command, and I've created that host, all right? It's important to know that hosts stand alone because we have components that need a host to be created, right? So I can create this wall by itself, but if I click on window, which is a hosted element or a component, right? I move over here. If I just start to click, 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 nothing happens because that element can't exist without a host, right? So I move over the wall, click, look at that, a weird window is created. It's a weird window. Okay. So click, click, and I create my windows. I come over here to doors, click. Let's get a regular, do we have any, there we go, single flash, okay. I hover, click. Aren't all you AutoCAD people really amazed at this? One click and it makes a door, people, right? Instead of you know, line, arc, trim, block it out, bring it back in, right?
Once you put the door in, you can adjust the size.
You certainly can. No, you just get one size, Corey. Just kidding. No, you can. So I can grab the door, right, and I can use the drop down and I can change it. Look at that. Isn't it magical? And if I don't like the way it's swinging, well, look at that. I can change it, right? I'm going to undo. If I click on it, I can change the swing. It's very magical. There we go. Okay, so we have our hosts, we have our components, doors, windows, different things like that are components, right? They need to be hosted. There are elements that can only be hosted on certain types of hosts, like, you know, we have wall-based hosts, or wall-based components like doors and windows. We also have floor-based components, right? Like skylights or furniture or whatever, plumbing fixtures, okay? We have ceiling-hosted elements like lights and diffusers and different things like that, okay? We have views. You guys all hopefully understand the idea of a view. We have a model, and we look at it different ways to see the different views, right? Floor plan, elevation, section. We also have datum elements, which are kind of mostly defined as levels, all right? Datum elements are only viewed or seen in an appropriate view for that item, right? Which means if I go to the north elevation here, okay, I can see these vertical elements because an elevation view shows me vertical heights, right? Sections show me vertical heights. So when I look in those views, I can see the vertical datums here, the levels that have been defined, okay? As opposed to, you know, I mean, technically a floor plan is, I mean, it's a view of a vertical item, right? But when I double click and I look in here, I don't see those datum markers, right? Because it's not appropriate for this view, okay? So I've got my data markers. These things have to be defined so that we can build this model, right? Because elements in here are defined vertically, right? Second level starts at, you know, level 2, which is 9 foot 10 inches above the level 1 living room, right? And the roof goes up, the roof starts at 19 foot 8 and goes up however tall, okay? So we have these datum elements, these datum markers, okay? And we also have annotation, okay? So annotation is going to be 2D elements that are placed in views to define information, all right? So things like, for example, under level 1, I have a room tag, right? That's annotation. I have these grids, that's annotation. I have this section marker, that's annotation, right? Window tags, door tags, keynotes, text, dimensions, all different types of annotation, okay? And you place them appropriately per view when you need them, okay? So we've got hosts, and those stand alone, okay? We have components, which are hosted into hosts, right? Components cannot stand alone, generally speaking. We have views, which are different views of the model. We have datum, which define vertical relationships. And we have annotation, which define different elements in our models. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? No, not yet.
Host, components, annotation, what else?
We have hosts, components, views, datum, and annotation. Yep. Okay. Lots of stuff, right? All right, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything I wanted to get to today. Oh, sorry, one other thing. I lied. Okay, saving your files and file types. All right, just one final thing, and then we'll call it a day. But I do want you to recognize a Revit file, a Revit template file, and a Revit family file so that you know what file to work in, essentially, because not really funny, but funny enough, it's very kind of, the Revit files can be very confusing, right? And the reason is because we have a lot of backup files sometimes that can be associated with Revit files, all right? So we have three different file types in Revit. We have an RFA, so .rfa, that's a family file, okay? So if I look, let me just go somewhere where you don't need to worry about going to, but if I look at, for example, furniture, okay, let's get my oh, it's not showing me the file extension here. Oh, yes, it is right there. So right here, Revit families are going to be RFA. All right. So if you have a Revit file and you've started working in it and it's .rfa extension, you're working in the wrong file. Okay. A lot of times you can still do a lot of things you can do in Revit regular working files, but things are going to go wrong, obviously, right? So these are Revit families. They're like blocks, essentially, in AutoCAD, okay? And it's the RFA extension, okay? RFA. We also have the now I'm going to mess everybody up by RVT file. The .rvt file is a Revit template file, all right? The template file will allow you, and most companies have these established. They are a blank slate for you to begin a working file, right? That has definition that maybe an employer or you has established to help you start working, okay? So what that means is, you know, dimensions and text styles and title block have all been predefined by somebody, right? The drawing is blank, but it has everything you need in it to start working, essentially, okay? So when you start a job, likely this will be defined for you, but that's a template file, okay? So usually the workflow is you open your template file, you file save as, and you save it as an RVT, or let's see, RFA is the family, RVT, and oh boy, hold on a second. We'll just save it and see what happens, right? RT, oh, sorry, I messed it up, you guys. It was RTE for template. That's my fault. That's totally my fault. RTE is the template file. So RFA is the family, RTE is the template file, and RVT is the working file, okay? So RTE files or template files, you will open them up, file save, and when you save them, they will save it as a .rvt file, and that will be your working file. So essentially the workflow is you open your template file, you save it, it breaks that relationship from template file and makes it a working file, all right? Right now we have an RVT file open here. It's just a regular working Revit file, okay? The first time that you save your Revit working file, you want to establish backup files with that so that, you know, if your Revit file is you know, deleted or corrupted or something happens or you do something wrong and you need to, you know, open up a previous version, you have it. When I go and I click on File, Save As, I'm going to just save a project. One thing I do want to make you aware of, there's 10 backup files that are created by default when you save a Revit file straight out of the box. All right, and it's really not necessary to have 10. And in fact, if you have 10, you'll get really confused and something bad will happen. Honestly, it's happened to me recently. This just happened to me, and I should know better. So if I want to save a project, and we'll go back over this one more time when we start a new project, I'm gonna, you know, pretend like I'm saving, go to my desktop, I'm gonna create a new folder, and we'll call this Revit project, right? I open that up, I give this a name, so we'll call this sample Revit file. I make sure it's an RVT, which is a working file, and before I save it, I'm gonna choose options. And you really only have to do this one time, and Revit will remember for the next time. Options, and I'm going to change from 10 backups to 3. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit Save. And that just saved this file as a working Revit file. Okay, let me go to my desktop here, in my Revit project folder. Okay, let me open this up. There's my Revit file, okay? The second, well, let's see if we can get it to, let me see if I can get it to generate. I'm gonna save again. Let me make a change, delete, save, delete, save, right? Okay, when I save, I immediately start getting these files that have the same name, but they have a number after them, right? Those are my backup files. And since I only established that I wanted 3 of them, Revit will stop with 3. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, and then it saves over the first one again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So you'll get hundreds and hundreds of saves over the lifetime of a project, and it will just continue to save over them, okay? Now, you need to have these, but you have to be very careful with them, because if you accidentally open up one of these, if you're trying to double click and open one, right, like we do on a lot of files, click, click, it will open up, right? It won't say, hey, this is a backup file. This is a previous version. You have a newer version available. Are you really sure you want to open this version? It just opens up and immediately overrides your brand new file, okay? So it's not kind of the typical way to restore a backup file. It's an accidental way to do it. But you just want to be very careful that you are aware that there is a difference between this file, right, the working file, and these backup files, okay? I save all my things to Google Drive, right? I accidentally opened up one of my backup files the other day because it was, you know, my screen was tiny. I just wanted to scream. I probably lost 4 days of work because I couldn't, you know, I back up on Google Drive, so it like just it immediately synced to all of my devices so I couldn't get back.
Is there a way to have your backups put in a different folder?
You know, there probably is, actually. I was just, let's see, it's probably under options, file locations. Let's see, for user files, I'm gonna have to look it up because I've never really changed it, but there's got to be somewhere. Let's look. I probably haven't ever done it because I haven't wanted to go and search on, figure out how to. Let's see. I'll see if I can find where, because it would make sense. It's just never been
Smart to put it in
yeah.
different folders so you don't accidentally.
Right. Grab it. Yes.
Something I would do.
Well, let's Google it real quick and see if we can find it.
So even the backups will have a type of file like RVT, right? Even
Well,
for the backups,
it will have a number.
just the number.
Yeah, it's kind of like AutoCAD. Like this is the .bak kind of extension for AutoCAD. Yeah. Let's Google it and see. File path for Revit backup files, right? It makes sense. I'm gonna give you guys tell you guys a little secret, right? No, it is not possible. No, Brian, you cannot. According to these guys. Yep.
Can you try the ones that are already saved?
Uh-huh.
Can you try putting them in different folders saying that it's just the, what is it? The word?
The path,
No,
Like
what are these three?
the backups.
The backups.
Mhm.
Just put like this is the backup and then what it's saved on that folder.
No, so you could take these and put them somewhere else, right? As kind of a standalone version, but the second that you hit save again, it will just start saving that same folder again that your Revit file's in. Yeah. So that's likely why I haven't ever done it. But yeah, so just be careful, right? You have to have these. You could maybe slim it down to 2 of these if you wanted, but just be careful because it will override your file and it's a pain in the neck.
So as soon as you open it, it overrides?
Well, let me backstep. Not as soon, like the second you open it, no, but if you get an autosave that happens immediately, right? Or you accidentally hit save, or, I mean, it can be immediate, which is what happened with me. I got an autosave, I think, and I closed it out and it was done. Yeah. So just be careful, you know, because it happens. One other resource, so if you ever have troubles, right? You can really very literally find most answers that you need on Autodesk, right? Autodesk is a great forum to find answers. There's also Augi, A-U-G-I. Augi's a really good place, and Revit City to find answers to problems. But very literally, you could say something like, how do I save I'm trying to, how do I save a Revit file, right? And most of the time, somebody else has had the same question as you, and if you find an Autodesk website, file save options, right? Autodesk. Somebody else has run into the same problem you have, and you can find exactly what you need, okay? And I just use simple language, you know, to find them, and they're very helpful. Very rarely can I not find an answer to something I'm looking for, okay? All right, that was a lot for today. And probably Wednesday will be the same. I'll be talking a lot again. But no assignment for tonight. I want you is everybody downloaded Revit onto your laptops and home stuff? You're trying to do it? Okay. Okay. Try and get that going. So next week you'll have it to work on assignments. But other than that, that is all for today. That was a long lecture. We're going to have 2 very long lectures. Let me just, what I'm going to do as well, let me just turn off this recording. Stop.